The royal rumor mill is buzzing.
Motivationist.
No one expected the future king to sit at a piano, let alone silence a room full of critics. The future king was apparently not stunned, but when a world-famous pianist publicly mocked Prince William's musical skills, the royal had two choices: laugh it off or prove them wrong. What happened next left jaws on the floor. With cameras rolling and doubt in the air, Prince William stepped up, placed his fingers on the keys, and played like no one imagined. The performance didn't just silence the pianist, it stunned the entire world. This is the moment royalty struck a different chord. The royal gala that changed everything. It was supposed to be a routine evening for Prince William. Another polished appearance at yet another grand event. The Harmony for Hope Gala, held in the lavish ballroom of Kensington Palace, was designed to bring together global dignitaries, celebrities, and arts patrons in support of youth music education across the Commonwealth. Glittering chandeliers lit up the hall, violins played softly in the background, and golden invitations had promised a night of elegance, not controversy. Prince William arrived in his usual calm and composed fashion, accompanied by the ever-elegant Princess Catherine. The Princess of Wales will once again be hosting her annual Christmas carol service. They greeted donors, posed for photographs, and shared warm words with young scholarship recipients who beamed up at the royal host. All was proceeding as expected until the final performance of the night. The host took to the stage, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with a proud smile. "Good evening, Your Majesties. Good evening, Windsor. A huge thank you to everyone for making this such a special evening. Please welcome tonight's special guest, a pianist whose talent has inspired millions across the globe, the incomparable Lang Lang." Polite applause rippled across the ballroom. Lang Lang strode to the grand piano, commanding the room with the grace of a maestro. He adjusted the microphone, then paused. The room fell silent. "I've played on many stages," he began, his voice deliberate, his words carrying weight. "But tonight is special, not just because of the cause, but because of the company." His eyes scanned the audience, briefly locking on to the royal table. "Let me be honest. In recent years, I've seen something troubling. People in power often support the arts with their wallets, but never with their hearts." A few murmurs stirred. Eyebrows rose. Prince William sat a bit straighter in his chair. "We're joined tonight by royalty," Lang Lang continued. "But I wonder, when was the last time a royal actually played music? Or is art just another ribbon to cut?" The entire hall seemed to freeze. Cameras turned. Lang Lang looked directly at William. "Your Royal Highness," he said, his tone polite but pointed. "If you truly love music, I invite you to prove it. 1 month from now, at my concert in Royal Albert Hall, come and play. Just one piece, any piece. I'm here on stage at the Royal Albert Hall with the musical superstar Lang Lang. No crown, no titles, just your hands and the keys." Gasps broke out. Catherine's expression flickered. William gave a measured smile, but his jaw clenched ever so slightly. Lang Lang bowed. Then, without another word, he sat and launched into a thunderous Rachmaninoff prelude. As the applause faded and guests returned to their champagne flutes, murmurs filled the room. Did Lang Lang just challenge the future king? Will William actually respond? Surely he won't play, right? The royal couple made their quiet exit shortly after. Cameras flashed, reporters speculated, and with that, the night ended. Not with a reply, but with a decision taking root. But what really sparked Lang Lang's daring challenge to Prince William? And will the future king dare to respond? Stay glued to your screen. The forgotten keys of childhood. The applause still echoed in the corridors of Kensington Palace, but Prince William had already disappeared into the quiet of his private study, the weight of the evening pressing heavier than his tailored jacket. He loosened his collar and walked slowly through the dimly lit corridor that led to a part of the palace he rarely visited. What used to be the nursery, now converted into a modest reading room. The space held echoes of a childhood, long gone, soft memories hidden beneath years of royal responsibility. At the far end of the room stood an old upright piano. Dust clung to the mahogany surface, its once polished finish dulled with neglect. The keys, yellowing slightly with time, bore the faint impressions of a boy's hands that hadn't touched them in over 2 decades. William approached it slowly, Almost reverently, he pressed a key. A brittle G buzzed off tune, sounding tired, as if offended by years of silence. He smiled faintly. Still broken, he murmured. His mind wandered back to Ludgrove Prep School, where he had first taken piano lessons under the gentle but firm guidance of Miss Dempsey, a woman with wild silver hair and fingers that seemed to float across the keys like whispers. She had once told him, "You play like someone who listens to the spaces between the notes." That's rare. Back then, he didn't realize what she meant. He remembered his mother, Princess Diana, sitting beside him and his brother, Prince Harry, at that very piano, her perfume faint, her laughter filling the room as she played silly melodies meant to make her boys giggle. "Music is where feelings go when words aren't enough," she had once said, her hands lingering over the ivory keys. That memory stung now, sharper, louder than Lang Lang's challenge. William sat down slowly, the piano bench creaking beneath him. He placed his hands on the keys the way Miss Dempsey taught him. His fingers hovered there, motionless. Then he pressed one note, then another. A shaky melody formed, one he didn't fully remember, but his hands did. He played only for a minute. It was hesitant, clumsy, but not lifeless. When the final note faded, he sat in silence, the distant hum of palace staff and faint winter wind filling the room. Then he picked up his phone. "Simon," he said, calling his private secretary. "I need a piano technician here tomorrow, and find me someone who can teach quickly and quietly. May I ask why?" "Sir, I've just accepted a challenge," William replied, his voice firm. "And I need to remember who I used to be. This is what the Prince of Wales wants to highlight." He hung up and stood, casting one last look at the dusty instrument before turning off the lights. The prince wasn't sure if he could be ready in 1 month, but he knew with absolute certainty that he had to try the hidden mentor. 3 days later, a nondescript black car pulled up to the discreet side entrance of Kensington Palace. Far from the eyes of the press or the curious public, no fanfare, no royal guards at attention. Just a short silver-haired man in a long charcoal coat, stepping out with the cautious precision of someone who had once moved faster and with great purpose. His name was Sir Edward Avery, a former concert pianist once hailed as Britain's answer to Vladimir Horowitz. Decades ago, he had played in every major concert hall across Europe until a mild stroke during a performance in Berlin ended his career. He'd withdrawn from the spotlight and refused all teaching requests. Until now, the palace had reached out discreetly. The message had been simple. The prince requires a mentor, not for ceremony, for skill. Sir Edward was skeptical, even irritated. Royals were not his usual clientele, and he had little patience for dilettantes seeking vanity lessons. But something about the request, its urgency, its privacy, piqued his curiosity. Inside the music room, Prince William stood by the piano, waiting. He had changed into something less formal, more human. An open-collared shirt and wool jumper, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His posture was that of a soldier, prepared for a long campaign. Sir Edward entered without a bow, without flourish, just an assessing glance. "You called for a teacher," he said flatly. "Why?" William looked him square in the eye. "Because I've been challenged, publicly, and I don't want to disgrace the memory of someone who once believed I could play." Sir Edward raised an eyebrow. "Your mother?" William nodded. The older man said nothing for a moment. Then he walked toward the piano, running his fingers lightly over the lid. "When was the last time you practiced properly?" "Maybe age 11. Sir Edward gave a faint grunt. "So your muscle memory is dead." "Good. We'll start fresh." He gestured to the bench. "Sit." William obeyed. "Scales." "C major. Let's see what's left." William's fingers fumbled, lagging behind his mind. He missed notes. His wrist tensed. After 2 attempts, he looked up apologetically. Sir Edward sighed. "You play like a man with a heavy name. Too cautious. Too concerned with how it looks. Music doesn't care for titles, Your Royal Highness. It only cares if you feel." "I don't want special treatment," William said. "Just the truth." Sir Edward gave the smallest nod of approval. "Then I'll give you the truth. And the truth is this. If you're serious, I can teach you enough to survive that stage. But it'll take every spare hour you have." "You'll have them," William said. "All of them." Sir Edward smirked. "Then we begin." But let me warn you, your fingers will bleed long before the press does. The old man took a metronome from his coat pocket, set it beside the piano, and flicked it to life. Tick, tock, tick, tock. A new rhythm had begun, one not set by protocol, but by passion. But what did Sir Edward mean by warning William his fingers would bleed before the press did? Stay glued to your screen. Royal protocol versus piano practice. And so, while the world turned and the crown carried on, Prince William found himself surrendering to a different kind of discipline, one not governed by court protocol, but by the relentless tick of Sir Edward's metronome. Each morning began with official duties, policy briefings, ribbon cuttings, press appearances. Prince William and Kate Middleton makes his first public appearance of 2025. On paper, nothing had changed, but beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion was taking root. While aides arranged schedules, William rearranged priorities. 10-minute breaks became 15. Lunch meetings were rescheduled due to diary conflicts. Royal engagements were shaved just enough to create breathing room. Room for music. Every evening, after the children were asleep and the palace had quieted, William returned to the music room where Sir Edward waited, punctual as always. Sipping black tea and tapping one impatient foot. "You still play too carefully," he would mutter. "You don't attack the keys. You ask permission." "I've spent my whole life asking permission," William replied once. "Then stop," came the sharp response. "The piano won't curtsy to you." The lessons were brutal. William's fingers, unused to the stress, began to ache after mere minutes. His thumbs stiffened, his pinkies trembled. Sir Edward made no allowance for pain. "You want to survive next to Langlong. You need hands like stone and a heart like fire." At times, William doubted himself. After all, how many princes had stepped out of Buckingham's shadow only to fall flat in front of the world? Would this be any different? Yet each night, the music dug a little deeper, not just into the keys, but into him. During a dinner with Commonwealth ambassadors, William discreetly tapped out scale patterns beneath the tablecloth. During a state flight to Northern Ireland, he practiced fingering exercises on the fold-out tray, using the edge as a makeshift keyboard. Even the palace driver noted the shift, his once silent commutes now filled with classical recordings. Chopin, Debussy, Liszt, preparing for a concert. "Sir," the driver joked. William smiled faintly. "Something like that." Meanwhile, the media began to swirl with speculation. Paparazzi caught glimpses of large boxes delivered to Kensington. One unmistakably marked Steinway and Sons. Headlines screamed, "Is the prince planning a performance?" But no official comment was issued. Within palace walls, silence was strategy. Only Catherine knew the full truth. Often she'd watch from the doorway as William practiced, exhausted yet determined. Once, as he struggled through a passage in Debussy's Clair de Lune, she quietly placed a cup of tea beside him. "You're not doing this for them," she said. "You're doing this for her." William nodded. He didn't need to ask who she meant. The prince had faced war zones, political unrest, and relentless press coverage, but nothing had tested him like these keys. And the most difficult notes still lay ahead. Catherine's secret gift. But just as William began to question whether music alone could carry the weight of memory and expectation, Catherine left him a gift that changed everything. It was late, well past midnight, when he finally returned to their bedroom, hands sore and eyes heavy. His rehearsal had gone poorly. Sir Edward had walked out mid-piece, muttering something about emotion being more than posture. An expression. William, for all his composure, had slammed the piano lid in frustration and retreated upstairs in silence. On the bed sat a single envelope. No royal wax seal, just his name, Wills, written in Catherine's neat script. He opened it, expecting a kind note or perhaps a gentle nudge to rest, but inside was a photograph. It was old, slightly faded at the corners, clearly taken during his childhood. In it, Princess Diana sat at the same piano now restored in the nursery. She shifted about looking rather reluctant before the persuasive professor led her off to the piano. She was mid-laugh, one hand on the keys, the other wrapped around a much younger William who looked up at her with unfiltered joy. Behind the photo, a second slip of paper, Catherine's handwriting again. "She believed in you." "So do I." William sat on the edge of the bed, unmoving. The palace, quiet as it was, seemed to pulse with memory. He stared at the image for a long time, tracing his mother's face with a thumb he hadn't realized was trembling. For so long, he had seen music as an obligation, another skill to master, another expectation to meet. But in that moment, it wasn't about Lang Lang or the press or proving he could survive a performance. It was about Diana. She had played not to impress, but to connect. With her sons, with the world, with herself. William stood and walked back down the hall, photograph still in hand. The lights of the nursery music room glowed faintly as he entered. He sat at the piano without warming up, without scales, without Sir Edward's voice in his ear. Instead, he played, not for technique, not for perfection, but for her. The melody was quiet and uncertain. Debussy again, though not quite as written. His own version, shaped by memory more than sheet music, a lullaby of the past, rewritten by the present. When he finished, the silence that followed didn't feel heavy. It felt whole, and from that night forward, William stopped practicing to win. He started playing to remember. But what made Prince William trade perfection for memory? And why did that moment quietly shake the world? Stay glued to your screen. The Prince, the Pianist, and the press. And while William now played with renewed purpose, the outside world was beginning to take notice. And it wasn't long before the press turned the entire performance into a national spectacle. It began with a blurry photo, one that never should have existed. A long-lens paparazzi shot from across Hyde Park, capturing Prince William inside the palace's West Wing, seated at the baby grand piano. Though grainy, the image was unmistakable. The future King of England. Sleeves rolled, head bowed in deep concentration over the keys. The tabloids had a field day. Prince practices for royal showdown, screamed one headline. William versus Lang Lang, Battle of the Keys, teased another. The Daily Mirror even ran a betting line on whether he would hit a single correct note. Across breakfast tables and evening broadcasts, the nation speculated wildly. Some called it inspiring, others called it madness. Royal aides scrambled to contain the narrative, but it was already slipping through their fingers. Rumors swirled of secret rehearsals, imported Steinways, and a reclusive master coach smuggled into the palace under a false name. At the center of it all, William remained calm, at least publicly. He declined interviews, issued no statements, and carried on with his official duties. But behind palace walls, the pressure mounted. Lang Lang, by contrast, was enjoying the limelight. During a BBC interview filmed in a grand London concert hall, he was asked directly about the upcoming performance. "I've always respected the British royal family," he said with a smooth smile. "But I must confess, I was surprised by the prince's acceptance. It takes courage, and perhaps a little recklessness." The interviewer laughed. "Do you think he has a chance?" Lang Lang's smile lingered just long enough to deliver his message. "Let's just say, the stage is a great equalizer." That clip went viral within hours. Inside Kensington Palace, Sir Edward scoffed. "Reckless, is it? We'll show him reckless." But William wasn't angry. He was focused. Each night now bled into the next. The music room became a sanctuary. The rest of the world locked outside its doors. His playing improved, not in flawless execution, but in texture, in vulnerability. Sir Edward began adding new challenges. Improvisation, expressive contrast, changes in tempo. "Lang Lang will play like a machine," he told William. "You must play like a man." Catherine kept the household grounded. She fielded curious questions from the children, especially George, who asked why his father was doing piano homework after bedtime. William smiled, because even grown-ups have dreams. "Buddy." Still, the world outside pressed harder. A viral parody clip circulated on social media, overlaying William's rehearsal footage with slapstick piano sound effects. It stung, but he let it pass, because for every joke, there was also support. Letters poured in from across the country. Elderly women who once played piano in village halls, teenage boys who hated music class until now, veterans who said it was the first time in years they had seen a royal take a genuine risk. The pressure was real, but so was the purpose. And with the concert at Royal Albert Hall only 10 days away, William wasn't playing to silence the critics anymore. He was playing to be heard. The Royal Albert Reckoning. As the final days ticked down, and the world waited to see whether a prince could hold his own against a master, the stage was being set for a night that would redefine royal tradition and challenge everything William thought he knew about himself. Royal Albert Hall shimmered under the floodlights, its iconic red brick glowing like embers against the cold London night. Cameramen jostled for position, while attendees, an eclectic mix of aristocrats, artists, diplomats, and curious onlookers, filled the velvet seats in anticipation. Backstage, William stood alone. He wore a tailored black suit, stripped of medals and honors. No regalia, no ribbons, just a man about to step into a world that judged by feel, not bloodline. On the table beside him sat a worn photograph of Diana, and the words Catherine had written. "She believed in you." "So do I." He exhaled slowly, feeling his heartbeat sink with the steady thrum of the crowd beyond the curtain. Lang Lang performed first, the musical superstar Lang Lang, who's just played a concert in masterclass, dazzling the audience with 3 jaw-dropping solo pieces. His final flourish on Rachmaninoff earned a standing ovation that lasted nearly a full minute. Then, silence. A single announcement rang through the hall for the evening's final performance. A duet. Gasps rippled through the audience. William emerged from the wings. The cameras flashed, but he didn't flinch. Lang Lang waited at the first piano bench. Expression unreadable. William took his seat at the second. The lights dimmed. A hush fell, and together, without fanfare or introduction, they began to play Clair de Lune. 2 men, 2 pianos, 1 fragile, shimmering thread of music binding them together. What followed wasn't flawless, but it was unforgettable. But what unfolded between William and Lang Lang on stage that night made perfection irrelevant. Stay glued to your screen. A standing ovation and a royal rebirth. And as the final note of Clair de Lune faded into silence, what followed was not an explosion of applause, but a stillness so profound, it felt as though the entire world had paused to breathe. The audience at Royal Albert Hall remained frozen for a beat longer than expected, an unspoken acknowledgement that they had just witnessed something rare. Not perfection, but vulnerability. Not spectacle, but soul. Then it came. The first clap was hesitant, almost cautious. But within seconds, it spread like fire. Applause thundered through the historic hall, not just for the music, but for what it represented, a future king who had dared to be human. William stood and bowed, sweat beating lightly at his brow, hands still trembling. Lang Lang, ever the consummate performer, stepped beside him and offered a bow of his own, not just to the crowd, but with a glance to William, a bow of respect. Backstage, Catherine was waiting. She wrapped her arms around him the moment he stepped off stage. "You did it," she whispered. "And not for them, for you." Nearby, Sir Edward, usually stoic, offered a rare nod. "Well," he muttered, "you didn't crash and burn." Miraculous, really. Later that night, as the reviews flooded in and social media lit up with praise, William sat alone in the palace's music room. The old upright piano stood before him, its once broken G key now restored. He placed his fingers gently on the keys, not to practice, not to perform, just to play. Not as a prince, not as a pupil, but as a man who had found his way back to a part of himself he never knew was lost. And that's how a royal challenge turned into a musical revelation. Prince William didn't just play the piano. He played from the heart. In a world that often demands perfection, sometimes what moves us most is vulnerability. And somewhere, deep in the quiet, he could almost hear her. The soft laughter of his mother echoing in the space between the notes. What did you think of William's performance? Was it bravery, redemption, or something more? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more engaging content.